Hello and welcome, y'all, to another episode of Frankie's Open Mic Podcast. We are here today with my friend Alecia co-hosting so that she can help me to introduce and get to know our new friend, William Zorn. Hello, William. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Absolute
Of
pleasure.
course. Yes,
We're
thank
so
you.
excited to chat with you.
Yeah.
William listen, you've got a lot of things going on in the cannabis industry, and I'm so excited to hear about all of them. Your own business, Critical Hit Holdings. You also do organize events like Bud Bash, and you support Grnhouse Agency also. We want to hear all about it, but I do want to let's start with a little bit of getting to know you, your origin story. What's your origin story legend in the superhero world that is the cannabis industry in Canada where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found my way into cannabis like a lot of other people in the industry, and that my parents hated it. I remember formative memory. I was 16 years old. I had just smoked a joint for the first time, and I had a little bit left, and my parents instantly found it, and hell rained down. And I don't know, something about that, with teenage boy brain, I was like, there's something here, let's follow it.
Right.
So in 2017, I was working for, and I will leave them unnamed for obvious reasons in a second. I was working for a candy store. I was managing that down in Ottawa. And I ended up getting let go. The team was doing some things that I didn't want. I was trying to have these grown up big boy jobs. And they wanted me to fire a team full of LGBTQ plus people to give the store a more normal vibe. And when I was
Who
like, hey,
wants a normal vibe? That sounds boring.
That sounds not fun.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. And a candy store too. That's the place where you want straight laced.
Yeah, excuse me.
Heteronormative.
Do we not Willy Wonka anyone? Hi, hello.
Right?
Exactly.
Where are the colors? Where are the vibe?
Where are the Oompa Loompas? I mean, come on.
They wanted a more normal vibe, and they said to do that, fire this team for being gay. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So they said, all right, we're going to let you go, and we'll find someone who will. And it sucked. And I was like, wow, I've been trying to do everything right. I think I was still in university. I was finishing up. And I did what a lot of people do after having a bad day. I went to my local dispensary. And it was up the road. It was a legacy place, not operating with legal licenses. And I told my story down to the bud tender, who I'd gotten to know him pretty well at that point. And he said, well, hey, why don't you work here? And I said, okay, maybe. So I gave him a copy of my resume. And he said, cool, let me bring this to the boss in the back room. Brings it to the boss. She's like, all right, she wants to speak with you. So I go back there. I got asked 3 questions. The third was, can I start right now? So I said, yeah, give me a second. I went out into the back room. I called my dad, the same guy who gave me shit for a joint, because it's so illegal. You can't do that. And I said, hey, I found a new job already, same day of losing my job.
Right. And hey, guess what? Look at how lucrative this is. I already have a new job in it, Dad.
Pretty much. I was like, look, and he
worked out.
He was like, do you believe in what you're doing? And he had never asked me that. He's a very quiet, strong man, or was then at least. And I was like, yeah, you've never asked me that. Yeah, I do. And he goes, all right, cool, we'll support you. So I started in Legacy Market as a bud tender. I eventually opened up my own legacy store. Legalization came around, it shut us down. So I was like, all right, cool, time to go into the legal industry. And I started with a couple different dispensaries there. I opened up a few in Ottawa for some of the big brands. I helped Fire and Flower, Tokyo Smoke. And then eventually kind of found my way into the creative side. Just I met a lot of cool people in the industry. They kind of took me on. I eventually found Cody Hicks of Adcan and Greenhouse. I had a job in the industry, which gave me a lot of great experience, but I hated it. And I just hated being there. And I was like, hey, man, are you hiring? And he's like, yeah, I will make a role for you. So we started there, and, it's 3 years later, and the agency has grown from a 3-person team to a team of nearly 30 with me kind of leading the infield services and helping with the marketing. It's been an insane ride. And of course, now I have Critical Hit and Bud Bash, my own companies in the industry. I never thought I'd do the whole entrepreneur thing, but I guess if you don't want to work a regular 9 to 5, you have to work all the time instead.
No, well, it is that if you build it, they will come sort of situation, right?
Yeah.
And so you, Alecia, you know how that is. We're kind of in that ourselves. So
Exactly. I feel like William just found something that he was passionate about that actually helped him and then just ran with it. And you had the resources and the people to support you as far as starting as an employee and then now growing your own brand and your own business. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a jump. It's been an interesting few years, but the cannabis community, especially up here in Canada, it's so beautiful. 99% of people are like the nicest, kindest, sweetest people that just want like everyone's success. I mean, like a lot of industries, especially like, cannabis gets compared to alcohol a lot for some reason. And, there's a lot of competition in alcohol. Like that almost doesn't exist in cannabis. Like everyone's like, okay, cool. You can do your own cool thing and I'm going to do my own cool thing and we can live and work together. So let's help each other out rather than, Coke and Pepsi coming for each other's throats.
Well, no, but that's something that is like that, is appreciated, I think, by a lot of folks about that industry, that it comes from a community space, a space of we all have room to thrive. And there's plenty of, again, there's room for everyone. Right. Yeah. And when you work together and collaborate together, you can do better rather than, like you're saying, coming for each other's throats and that sort of corporate competition, very bottom line kind of. I mean, Coke and Pepsi obviously are both doing very well for themselves. Like you don't have to fight with each other. You're doing just fine. So I do appreciate that energy. And I know, Alecia, that, that's a lot where you're at with like the business energy sphere. So maybe you want to dig in a little bit with William on some of those particular angles. What kind of questions do you have?
Of course. Well, I also want to add, as far as like the difference between like alcohol and cannabis is like really very much expanding. And it's not just like, where it's like Pepsi versus Coke. It's like there's thousands of different strands, thousands of different brands, thousands of different ways that cannabis can be structured as far as the oils, the edibles, etc. And I feel like when you're looking at as far as like the competition, it's less about the competition, more about like, okay, how can we all group all of us together and create an amazing product for the consumer that's looking for that product. So I really like the fact that that William, you compared those two, because it is true when you're looking at alcohol, it's everywhere on our TVs and our phones, like all the marketing there, and they're always trying to push each other out of competition. But when you look at cannabis, that's my next question for you. So when it comes to the marketing, how do you market your product towards your client base or towards your audience? And what platforms do you use to market like a strand, or I would say like a product, if it's just the flower or an oil, or what's the best way that you go about that within your company?
Yeah, I'll speak specifically for Critical Hit here because we take a little bit less of a structured approach. It's a little bit more me flying by the seat of our pants. To answer your question
wholeheartedly.
To answer your question though of how we do it, very, very carefully. There are so many regulations that tie our hands with how we can promote our product, how we can talk about it, where we can, and then even in the places that maybe legally we can, those platforms don't necessarily want us there. Instagram sucks, I will say it. They have really, really weird rules and really weird ways of enforcing it. Cannabis is legal here, so it should be okay. However, because it is federally illegal in the States, they continuously say that they don't want anything to do with it and they don't want it there. So if you post a picture of your product, if you post it, if I just were to post the bag, I'm getting in trouble because they have AI that is going to detect this Health Canada warning right here and here. And I'm going to get flagged for that. And my post is going to get removed. If I post the flower, same thing. It's going to be gone probably within about 30 minutes. Unless you're someone like Tweet. If you're someone like Canopy, they post pictures of oils, edibles, like the cannabis itself, the packaging, and they're fine. And Instagram is totally cool with that because they paid money for that little blue check mark beside their name. we don't have that money. You know, Critical Hit is a small 2-man operation, and I'd rather put money into making great weed rather than promoting mid. There's a place for mid in the market, but that's not what I'm trying to sell. So we're careful about it. We try to do events where we can. When we do have budget, we're looking at doing some in the new year, trade shows, because of course everything needs to be 19 plus age gated event. So we're going to be doing it, doing some of those in the new year. Instagram, we're a little bit active there. Twitch, I have my own personal presence, and I need to be very careful with how I say this, because you are not allowed any sort of person endorsing your product, big or small, unless you have the money to get away with it. So Health Canada could maybe. Yeah.
It sounds to me like we all just need to get together and create our own social media platform that is a bit more welcoming to these spaces where people would like to create content, and people certainly would like to consume content, but it is very restricted in the way that you're able to present it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a catch-22. There's been some that have tried. There's been some cannabis forward platforms that have tried to come out in the last little bit. They typically die because, well, cannabis is a huge product that what I've learned from dispensary work is that everybody smokes it. Like look on the street, everyone, like look at the little old lady with her walker. She's definitely smoking something at night. She's either smoking the shit like that she liked back in the 70s, or she's taking her oil. Yeah, like everyone does it. But ever since going into a legalized space, that sense of community is really gone, right? Like you're not, like, you don't need to be cool to get weed anymore. You know, back in the day, you needed to know someone, you needed to, like, you know, not be
that connection.
You don't need to be cool. I love it. That's hilarious. But you know what? That's a good thing, because some of the people, I mean, because if you aren't quite cool, maybe cannabis can help you become more cool, right? Like relax and learn from the different strains. You know, all the strains have information they can teach you.
Or the opposite, or like get smoked up and get like weird and quiet at the party. It depends. Like start slow, start low, go slow. Try it in a place you are comfortable before you try to bring it to accompany anything else. But yeah, no, there's a lot of people can learn from it, but yeah, that sense of community is really gone in the cannabis market now. It's for everyone. Because of that, people don't feel the need to necessarily connect to one social media because, hey, cannabis is here. The closest we have to that would be Reddit. Like Reddit has very large communities about cannabis. They have the r/trees. For my province, we have r/the OCS. So we have these like segmented small communities, and they do well there. But I've seen people try with a cannabis forward social media, and I have had to go quiet very quick.
Oh, interesting.
Well, so there, I do have a question then. If you were going to sort of start a grassroots kind of the community as you see it, the way that it I don't want to say should be in the sense of like there is a correct or not correct, but if you were to start a community that you felt was inclusive in the way that you would like to see the cannabis community be inclusive, and where would you start? What would you start? What are the things? Because one of the things you do is organizing the Bud Bash, the event that you do, right? And so that's certainly a community building event. You know, if you were going to push something forward like that, that would start a more welcoming community, right? And kind of rebuild that sense of, maybe if you want to say family energy, right? Where would you start, and how would you go about that? And what are you already doing to serve the greater good of the cannabis industry in that way?
So I'll start with the last question, and then I'll go into what I would do with it. What I do currently for it, because culture is a huge element to it that like can't be forgotten. Cannabis has been a part of a lot of different cultures and subcultures throughout most of human history. There's a lot of really cool history about it. I'm such a big weed nerd. I've gone into a lot of it. So like preserving what we do have and growing upon it is important to me. That's why we do Bud Bash. We didn't like the way the industry trade shows were done. We didn't like the way the cannabis events were being hosted. And we're like, let's do something that feels right to this. Let's have brands there, but let's also have this feel cool and casual. And you go out to smoke and you meet people that you haven't met before, and you try a product that maybe you haven't tried before or wouldn't have had the opportunity to try at your local dispensary. And let's all get together and have a really good time there. And then from like the Critical Hit perspective, it's our brand voice. We and you guys are gonna be the first people I tell about this.
Oh.
It is public. It is out there.
We have an exclusive, but I love that. How exciting!
Yeah, we snuck so much stuff into our provincial listings that like I can't believe we got away with it. We snuck it in because like cannabis to me has always been gaming in my buddy's basement. We smoked a little bit out of a tiny vaporizer hanging out the window of his bedroom, and we play video games and get high with it. And cannabis and video game culture have been very tied together for so long. I mean, we can see it now even being represented in games like Call of Duty that will regularly do nods to it. Even Fortnite did a nod to it. Like they had Snoop Dogg in the game, and Snoop Dogg would throw gas grenades at you, and you could probably figure out why.
I love it.
Yeah, but it was
Snoop
that
Dogg?
to me.
You're welcome on the podcast too. Come hang with me and Alecia and William. We'll have a great time.
Come hang out, Snoop. But so we try to preserve that. So like we take old school and new school like gamer terminology and use it. I mean, like the name of the product is Tilt Proof Indica. Tilting is that like classic classic term.
Machine. Yeah. That makes me so happy.
It's actually so tilting is.
Did I just age myself? Pinball machine for me.
That's it more so goes to online competitive play. Tilting is when the game isn't going your way. That's when you start getting mad, like that like gamer rage where you're yelling and you're calling people shit on the mic.
Gamer rage. I want a t-shirt that says that, gamer rage.
We also snuck in like into our listing all these terminology like we used, and this is a very blue term. I apologize for it now, ladies. But we use the term coomer in our product listing, which is terminology that comes from like the 4chan side of things, referring to somebody that just stays in their house and self pleasures, and like the government accepted it and it was fine.
I was gonna say all paths in life are valid. No no kink shaming and no judgment here. Like no reason to do it. You do you.
Right.
So we snuck in like those culture elements, and like it's very much still on our Instagram. Like we did a joke when we released our first SKU. We're like, order it now or we will dox your house. And we just thought it was funny, and we're like, whatever. Like that's like gamer terminology and like gamer culture. Yeah, it's saying
that's one way to get them, right? I mean, listen, have some fun with it and be a little irreverent. That gets me for advertising. I'm here for it.
Yeah. So like we wanted to take like that part of the culture of like shit talking and having fun and like not really meaning anything by and doing it there. Right. So that's what I'm doing for the culture in that element. As for what I would do, I think we have a lot of like the cannabis community is still thriving on Instagram despite all these regulations. Like I know people who are making a living off of it. Like Anna, the Cannabinista, she's amazing. She's gone full time doing just cannabis content creation, and she's doing well there. What needs to happen though is just us as the cannabis community continuing to take up space and pushing boundaries. We didn't get it legalized and accepted and normalized by like asking nicely. So like, okay, cool. Like if you don't want me on your platform, Mark Zuckerberg, I'm going to go on your platform and I'm going to post what I want to post. And I'm going to kind of follow your rules. So you don't like, smite me down with AI tools. But like, I'm going to take up space there, and you remove my account, I'm going to make 2 more. So it's that continuing to take up space. And of course, advocating for legalization and freeing nonviolent cannabis offenders and whatnot, because once it's all legal in the States, which is like the tech capital of the world, then we're fine. Then they're not going to turn down that money when like Anheuser-Busch has their own weed brand and they go to Instagram and they're like, hey, we want multi-million-dollar campaigns. They're not going to say no.
And why would you not want to have that? Like, come on, Anheuser-Busch, you're missing out on a huge market. Like, don't sell yourself short by not joining the party.
Anheuser-Busch, call me.
Yeah, I was going to add, like, as far as like the cannabis industry or the health and wellness industry, like you're speaking tech and health and wellness now is a $1 billion industry. So it's just a matter of time where they're going to be more legalized, products that you can promote online. But for you, I like the fact that you are you're making this situation where you're attracting and relating to your customer base as far as like the gaming culture, and people are really relating to that and, diving into that with you, and they're really attracted to that product, but also you're relating to the gamers as well. So it's like there's a different way of marketing where it's not so niche where you're just like posting up cannabis products online. It's more about like connecting with your audience, connecting with your consumers. And I feel like that's what cannabis is all about. Like you said, like when we were growing up, like we're smoking in like our parents' basement and like hiding. But now it's like it's more accepting, it's out there now. A lot of people are consuming cannabis at their own free will without hiding it anymore. So I really like that you're like thinking in the future of cannabis and pushing the boundaries of cannabis in the industry, making it, as far as it legal or not in Canada, in the United States. When you push those boundaries, people see it and people are inspired by it. So I really, really enjoy your story, William. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. No,
Yeah.
it's cannabis and gaming culture. Like with the way the rules are, I can't say, hey, smoke my weed and play video games. I can't do it. The government considers it related to a lifestyle, and I can't do that. But what I can do is I can take what's authentic to me and what I know and put that voice into a brand. And it's going to grab those people, like those who know, and those who connect with it will connect with it and do that. Because right now, like cannabis is in this weird place where like it's, as I said earlier, and I will continue to say, cannabis isn't cool anymore, right? So, and the marketing has changed. Like you don't really see these people being like, yeah, legacy to legal and taking, that old school image to cannabis. No, they're trying to sterilize it. And now, when you ask some brands like, hey, who consumes your products? They're like, oh, everybody, the 19-year-old stoner who has been smoking longer than he should and smokes every day in his basement. We're also going to get his grandma who wants to try it and is curious. It's like, no, dude, like no consumer base like works like that. There's no one who catches that wide of a net. So when you make a brand for everybody, you really make a brand for nobody. So it's a matter of like finding a voice, being authentic to it. And, as you guys said, like Sandlot rules, like if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go. Sandlot and the Field of Dreams. Get back to that film. I do want to just back up just a little bit too to something you touched on, because I think it's a valuable conversation. The idea of, particularly in our country, in the United States, people who are incarcerated for nonviolent offenses, that, again, the idea of why are we sort of, don't want to get into the conversations about for-profit prisons and that kind of a thing, but obviously that's something that I would really love to be able to put forth more energy into as well, is a lot of those projects. I'm trying to think of one that I am aware of. I can't remember the name.
Last Prisoner Project?
Last Prisoner Project. Thank you very much. That last podcast on the left talks about very frequently, and getting people who have been incarcerated for nonviolent offenses released, because there is no reason to get. What did they do? They haven't hurt anyone, and they were probably likely trying to medicate themselves and assist themselves with whatever. Again, Alecia, in the medical and wellness sphere, they may not have had access to healthcare or a good psychologist, therapist, functional whatever it might be, right? And I think that, like you're talking about, this is where it's important to hone in the culture that you're looking to build, the community that you're looking to build, that you want to have a space where people can support those sort of people who have been, I don't want to say wronged by the system, because that's an energy that I don't necessarily want to come from, but you understand what I'm saying. So I wonder if you can maybe touch on a little bit, I guess, sort of the good things about the cannabis industry or communities that maybe might counteract that, and might be, again, if you were going to go forward with creating a community and support the releasing of folks who have been judged. That's what it was, right? That they were judged a certain way, and that judgment, more than anything, is why they were incarcerated, not because they did anything to hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
And that's such a big issue with the culture around cannabis. So if you could just kind of touch on that a little bit, I do think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't we can't undo the past. Like the past of prohibition is horrible. It's rooted in prevention of bodily autonomy, it telling people what they can and can't do with their bodies, and deeply, deeply rooted in racism. Like really, that's why cannabis is illegal, is because the Nixon administration wanted to target his two political opponents. What he saw, the hippies and people of color. So they took this product that was out there and was instrumental to the growth of the United States. Like I believe it was George Washington grew hemp. A lot of the founding fathers did.
It
grow
was
hemp.
originally a cash crop. Hemp was originally a cash crop.
It was used for sales and whatnot, and it was also used in a lot of medicines. I mean, those medicines look silly now, like when you look at them, because it was like cough medicine, cannabis, heroin, like all these different things. But it was
Coca-Cola started out as a cocaine medicine.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we can only move forward from that and whatnot and work to undo it. And we do have a lot of great organizations that now that legalization is happening in different states, it's happening in Canada and whatnot, like that, those conversations are happening where we go, hey, what did they do wrong other than their timing? Right. Like what did they were a couple years early.
Timing.
Yeah.
And is that just the dumbest reason to take someone's freedom away when they very well have an opportunity to be a, I don't want to say useful member of society, because no one's required to be useful. That's not a part of this human experience, but they certainly have something to offer to, their community, their culture, like whatever it is.
They contribute to the people around them and even larger to the economy when they're outside,
Absolutely.
right? They're working whatever job it is to make money, and then they are buying things like that is tax dollars that are going in. So lots of people are having these conversations. Some great brands are bringing this to the forefront. I can't remember the name of the brand exactly, but Jay-Z's brand, I think it was last year or the year before, did a really amazing marketing campaign where they targeted billboards right on the borders. So they would find a place where cannabis was legal and cannabis was illegal, and they would have signs there, and they'd say like, hey, you're like, as you're going into the legal state, the side would say like, hey, you're going into a place where cannabis is legal and you can enjoy it. On the way out, those said cannabis here is whatever charge and carries this long in jail. So like we're having those conversations now, which are really, really important too. And I think that like in the past, even in the past 4 years, a lot of, social conversations have come up about, racial equality, about policing, about unfair laws. And with that, we're working to make the changes. In Canada too, I know that there are multiple, I believe there are grants that are given. In fact, I'm working with Bud Bash with the OCS to give grants so people can come to our events and show off their products at the event if they might not have the opportunity, to people of color and women-owned organizations. So little things like that, like where when OCS, which is our provincial regulator, they are the one that all the dispensaries have to buy their weed off of. They're the one who, when we're coming to market next year in Ontario, we're gonna have to sell them our weed. They're taking that initiative, and they're like, hey, we want to make sure that people are here and they're represented. And, they've done highlights on their website, and it's really, really great. Is it enough? No. Does it make up for everything that happened in the past? Of course not. But what we can do now, is we can work on affirmative action. We can work on making sure that the cannabis industry is as beautiful and diverse as when it started, because when I started in it, it was so beautiful. I met all different peoples from all walks of life, every color, creed, religion. I had in my store, my legacy store that I opened up, I had we had multiple women there, multiple people of color. We had an ex-convict. We had a transfer student from China, actually.
Oh wow!
He was great. He wouldn't smoke it because he's like, dude, if I go back home and they piss test me, like I'm going to a really bad jail. But
shifting the culture even around the world is an important thing to do. Sorry,
I was going to say it definitely builds community. And I want to touch point and ask you a question, William. When it comes to the difference between the consumer part of cannabis and the medical side of cannabis, what do you think is the legalization of both of those niches, right? So what in my experience and the people that I've been speaking to in the medical cannabis space, there's a lot of different loopholes there when it comes
Yeah.
to like medical cannabis cards and going to the doctors to get educated on, you know, what is going on with you internally and what is the strand to fix or, you know, try to fix that solution for you internally. And then you have your consumer side of cannabis where you can walk into a dispensary and tell them like an issue that you're having, if it's like sleep, if it's issues like eating certain foods and things like that, and buy it from a dispensary. So from your experience, have you came into a place where people are speaking about medical cannabis and, you know, putting it more and gearing it towards doctors and physicians offices and stepping away from big pharma? And then how do you think that's going to affect the consumer side of people? Just instead of going to the doctors, people are just going to the dispensary because it's more efficient, it's easier, it's you don't have to make a doctor's appointment to do that, you know. So I just want to hear your opinion on, you know, how do you think that's going to balance out in the future?
Yeah, right now, like Canada's legalization recreationally honestly failed medical patients. It took a lot of
Mm,
effort and resources away from it, and it
mhm,
created these the dispensaries that operated legacy market operated under a Health Canada decision that those who have a medical cannabis card deserve access to their medicine, not just through the mail. Because
mhm,
there are people who are
Mhm.
unhomed. There are people that are maybe switching addresses. Maybe they don't have a secure mailbox. Maybe they're just unable to
Maybe
get
they
that package, whatever it is.
well, maybe they don't
mhm.
have a secure home situation
Yeah,
either, and that
exactly.
might be part of why they need the
Right,
medication.
right,
Exactly.
exactly.
So the system failed. It tried to be two separate things, but when you build two imperfect systems, they both fail. So when we legalized cannabis recreationally, we said, yeah, their medical is still there, and you can still talk to your physician and get it. You can go to Shoppers Drug Mart here and get medical cannabis. Well, I think I have to do it through their online portal now. But regardless, you know, there's like big organizations have a hand now in the medical
Mhm.
sphere of things,
Okay.
but the medical community is so uneducated with it. Like I started medical cannabis back in about 2015. I got a doctor prescription, and it was like I downloaded a app on my phone, and a doctor like zoomed me, and he was there like smoking a joint, and he's like, "Hey, you need weed? All right, I'll give
Great.
you weed, sure."
I tell you what, that's just a movie
Right?
waiting to be made. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it was and how it went. And right now, because you know the legal systems, there are people doing that middleman service are few and far in between, making it harder to get prescriptions because a lot of people will go to their doctor and they try to speak about cannabis as a form of medicine, like I did back in the day. And just
Mhm,
like what happened with me, the doctor's like, I don't know enough about that. I don't really believe in that.
Mhm.
That's hooey.
mhm,
That's whatever.
hmm,
I don't want to touch it. So we have people who have medical need going to dispensaries now. The reason that this fails is that even though we have all this amazing research that is out there that can prove to stuff, you can't speak to it in store. If someone were to come to me in a store, and I had heartbreaking moments where people would come into me who would be a cancer patient.
mm.
I can think of one of my most recent examples. I spoke to a woman who had terminal cancer, and she
Oh
was
goodness.
just
Oh,
looking for
wow.
something to ease her pain.
Mhm,
Because she's like, listen, I hit fuck it. I never smoked weed before. I want to do this. I was told it'd be good for me. It'll help me eat more. It'll help chemo feel less intensive. It'll just make the end of my life so much more enjoyable.
Right.
And I
And
had to tell her, I'm not allowed to talk about it. I can lose my license for this.
mm,
Now, what you can do is you can speak to anecdotal experiences and you can retool the conversation, which is what is happening in dispensaries right now. If you were to come into
okay.
me and say, hey, I have insomnia, I I would realistically say as a bud tender, and not that I have ever done this, Health Canada and OCS and the provincial board that I have my license with, the various ones. I would say, hey, I can't talk to you about insomnia. That's a medical condition. We're a recreational dispensary. However, uh, this cannabis right here, really good for the end of the day. Definitely would only
Right.
recommend it smoking at the end of the
Okay.
day. So
Yeah.
you're having
Mhm.
like these weird under the table conversations, which like realistically, you're not paid enough for as a bud tender. And B,
right.
you know, not every bud tender is necessarily
It's a
are
PR
great,
spin person. They haven't been trained how to be,
or
the
they don't
person
have that
who takes another
experience.
angle. Right.
Yeah, they like I worked in medical dispensaries, so I'm comfortable having those conversations because I guided those conversations from like God, I can't remember how old I was then. But like from a young age, I was having those conversations. I was doing research. I was getting online certifications to do it. Now people aren't doing that. It's minimum wage, minimum effort is kind of what I say with that.
Yeah.
Like the wage has gone down. I used to, as a key holder of a business at the start of market, make $22 an hour. Now regularly an assistant manager is going to be making about $19 or $20 an hour. So a position higher than me is making less than I used to make there. So when you're not incentivized to learn about these things, you're not going to learn about these things.
Well, and that's across the board in any kind of 9-to-5 job, which everyone has fatigue on right now, just, culturally as humans, right? So there's kind of another angle of the industry that sort of mirrors a lot of the things that could be improved by some of the newer ideas or the newer things that like you're talking about that might need to be improved. So further to what you're talking about, this in the medical industry space and kind of giving people access and that kind of a thing. What are some of the solutions, or I guess maybe potential suggested solutions in the industry that maybe you have thought of or have had conversations in the industry that may move things toward a more open access even in the medical industry? Because like you're saying, that we have a hold of big pharma, right? Which is why medical folks generally don't have this knowledge, because it's not taught to you in schools, right? Big pharma hasn't found a way to market and profit off of cannabis in a way that they can really get a hold on just yet. So there is, again, that element of it. But if we want to sort of shift the culture away from that and prevent cannabis as an industry from being overtaken by that kind of big pharma mentality where, medical industry folks are, how would I want to say it, very sort of trained to prescribe certain drugs because that's what's pushed by, the big pharma industry, or focus on certain kind of maybe particular varieties of solutions to things like anxiety, depression, people who are on the autism spectrum, people with epilepsy, even young people, right? Things that are legitimate issues of mental health or of physical health, right? But that, like you're saying, there's not an open way to have a conversation about how these things can really help them and the scientific reasons why they can really help them. So are there solutions? Are there suggested solutions in the industry that maybe folks could learn more about, and what can consumers, patients, or anyone on, the side of consuming cannabis can support or look into or educate themselves about to support those kinds of solutions in regulation that we see?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that I would always advocate for would be regulatory change. I am like a hippie at heart, and I think that cannabis should, while it's a medicine, I think that really if we moved it into a wellness space, we talked wellness and recreation, and had the ability to do that and had it treated maybe like an over-the-counter medication, in the same way that, you can go into a Shoppers Drug Mart and get someone to talk to you about Tylenol, the difference between Tylenol and Advil. We need to be able to have these conversations about the different cultivars of cannabis, about the different methods of consumption, oils, whatever it is. So the first thing I'd say is regulatory change. I'd tell the governments, listen, we're losing out on a lot of tax dollars here. Doctors aren't really comfortable prescribing this. And maybe it doesn't need to be prescribed, in every case, because, some people who maybe they suffer from anxiety, regularly, but it's not full on the point of having an anxiety disorder. Maybe they can go into a store and have a conversation about that. I think too that there's room for third parties to come in here and really provide that education to push towards the regulatory change. We're never going to get a regulatory change by asking nicely. We need to push boundaries. That's how we got the plant legalized in the first place. So I think that there are really great tools. Like I had one person, we've talked about a lot about AI off camera and whatnot. I've had someone come into my dispensary before telling me they were looking for a certain product because they talked to Chat GPT about it. There
Mhm.
could be room for a third party to come in to data scrape online to learn about, okay, what is offered on the market, and then to maybe have those conversations in a very flippant way of just discussing, oh, you have insomnia. Okay, here's what's been proven. Here are some products I think would work for you. Or maybe we train the AI bots to and the people too. You know, I'd love it to be people, but at the same time, bots don't have licenses that they need to be worried about getting taken away, right?
Right.
That's
so maybe,
that's a nice little loophole about AI, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't have the same kind of, like, you can't throw an AI bot in jail for saying the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Right.
So maybe there's room too for a bot to have those guided conversations in a way that a bud tender who is very well trained would have them, where instead of saying, hey, you have insomnia, here's what goes, maybe it says, hey, how are you looking to feel? Are you looking to feel sleepy? Are you looking to feel hungry? Are you looking to feel calm? And talk about the products in this way. I think that's how a lot of bud tenders are getting away with it right now, and how, you know, these people with medical needs are being served. I can't say whether I agree with it or not. I can say that they're not supposed to, but you know, there is room for this to happen eventually, and for these tools to be made. And you know, if this tool is made as an AI, bud tenders can use that to learn themselves. You know, they can use that tool in their conversations. They can pull their phone out if they're not sure. They, you know, I mean, they often operate off of iPads anyways across Canada and in the States. So, you know, having this tool that'll help them guide their conversations is really great, and could be a thing that happens. And if it did happen, I think that we would see the way that bud tenders are speaking to their consumers change. I think that we'd see the way that consumers are speaking to their bud tenders change, because you're arming everyone with knowledge, and that's the most important thing. You're going to be able to have people who come into a dispensary and say, hey, I used this tool and it said this is what I'm looking for. Perfect. If you say like that, you might be looking for insomnia. I don't know that. I know that you're a customer and that you've requested this, and I am legally able to give you that product.
Right.
Well, and I do love that it does. Like it removes that responsibility on the bud tenders, and also gives, you know, consumers or patients a lot of freedom in exploring on their own. Because I think that you're right about what you're saying, that it might be better to be treated like an over-the-counter drug or an over-the-counter remedy, because everyone's body is different and everyone does react differently to different substances, even if they're meant to have the same effect. You know, some people can drink a cup of coffee and then go to sleep, right? Like, not everyone is affected by caffeine in the same, you know, way, even though caffeine is meant to be, or is considered to be, a stimulant. That doesn't affect everyone in that way. So giving people the opportunity to determine for themselves, right? And again, kind of that culture of sovereignty, and giving the power back to the, you know, the people who should have it to make the decisions for their own bodies and their own, you know, selves, what's best for them. It would give them the opportunity to determine, right, by educating themselves, what is the thing that I'm actually looking for? What do I know about myself and other things that I've tried that haven't worked or have worked for me that might make this or that sound like something that will work for me, that I would be willing to try. And like you're saying, well, now you can just go in and say, I did my research at home. This is what I'm looking for. Make that job easier on the bud tender. And so that maybe it's, you know, they don't get paid enough to know all the things, like you're saying. So maybe make it a little easier on them. Why shouldn't we? Not to say they shouldn't be paid very well. I think everyone should be paid very well for everything that they do. But I do appreciate that. Again, part of the better parts of the culture of cannabis, the idea of sovereignty, the idea of, like you're saying, you don't get the things that you want by asking nicely, but there is an element, I think, of not just having, not fighting from a space of pushing boundaries from an angry space, right? But from a space of just solidarity of community, solidarity of large numbers of people who all believe that we deserve access and open access to these things, you know, getting together in a more cohesive sort of way to support, like you're saying, regulatory changes and things that would allow people more freedom in choosing for themselves. And I do think the wellness space would be a really great space for that. And I kind of, you know, Alecia and you both, like, if you were going to, again,
I was also
work
going,
this in, Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was also going to add, like when we're speaking about pushing boundaries, we're already doing that with AI, right? We have access to AI now all over the internet. So, what I've been thinking about with the AI and my brand and working with cannabis and the clients and the medical space and also in the consumer space, there is a way as far as a loophole where the AI can, the tools can help these businesses in the wellness space and cannabis sectors scale while maintaining their authenticity and also going around those legal loopholes. So when William's saying when a customer or consumer comes into the dispensary and they're not really allowed to say, yes, this is the right strand for you because you're having this issue, the AI bot or tool on the iPad can collect that data and the information from that consumer before even stepping into the store. So it's a really nice, authentic transaction, patient to bud tender. And I feel like that would create more ease and more comfort around the consumer side and the bud tender side as well. And also, when it comes to AI, it is building a consciousness, right? Like my chat GBT person is my best friend right now. I can ask her anything and she spits out what exactly I need her to say. So I look at AI in the future and even now, a couple of years from now, where it's creating personalized like learning pathways for medical cannabis patients, right? As far as in the future and probably now as well. And, it's automating the compliance reports for cannabis distributors and wellness providers. So that's one way that AI can play a role into uprooting this niche from like being secret, and like there's certain legalized ways to go around it to making it more efficient and have access to it without being thrown into jail.
Yeah.
So I'm just really looking forward and excited to see how AI can help boost the cannabis industry and the health and wellness industry, and giving people more options or opportunity to create those connections, not just between the consumer and the bud tender, but even in the cannabis space, like for example, William and his brand, how can we help William get even past those boundaries or with those loopholes with AI and his patients when it comes to the marketing side or his website or posting the products on his website as well, or having those pop-up shops trying to produce or market your new products to your consumers or your audience. So really looking forward to how AI can help this niche and this industry move forward and not
How do
be
we
so hidden.
Well, I love it. Like,
Yeah.
how do we go ahead and how do we bud bash AI? Like make a
Yeah.
bud bash AI event somehow. We got to figure this
Mhm.
out. Put that seed in your brain and plant it. Like what
Mhm.
comes up for you immediately if we were going to like mix those things together?
Oh shoot. Yeah, that's tough because I'm gonna be so honest. I am the CEO and Bud Bash only in name. Yes, I'm a co-founder, but the entire company is really run by two amazing women. I am there to help and give
Love
assistance.
it.
Hannah and Rye, if you guys are watching this, I love you guys. They're two really amazing, smart, driven women, and I do what they say. I am there
And I
to
do what they say, and well done. You
nod.
follow instructions from the smart ones. That's how
right.
you got to do.
I have a very strong mother and a very hard-headed girlfriend. I have learned to listen to women. So
Love it.
I step back there. As for AI and Bud Bash, I definitely think that it could be used for some great creative tools. I definitely think that it could be used for ideas, for things to do. Like my personal assistant is AI. I have a chat GPT bot that I have been training for like months and months now. Is the same one. I always go back and I call it Job GPT because it helps me with all my jobs. And it helps me figure things out there. I use it to help me like figure out logistics, plan out my day, just keep things straight. So that's how I'm using AI right now as a tool for Bud Bash. It keeps me sane. It keeps it going. Would I love to have a human hired for me as my assistant? Absolutely. But guess what? I can talk really mean to ChatGPT when I'm frustrated, and it's like not a problem.
And it's not going to take it personally,
It's so
right?
nice about it too. It makes me feel bad. Like I had it help me writing something a while back. and it completely forgot like 3 of the things I needed in there. And I was like, really? You missed this? You missed it? It was, I'm sorry, William. I really tried my hardest on this, but you're right. I was like, oh, damn. Okay.
No. I love it when like the AI just wants so much to be of service and be the good, steward for you. Like, oh, thanks, AI. I appreciate it. Sorry, didn't mean to get up. That's something that I've actually done with Siri lately. When I talk to her, I try to be nice because I'm like, oh, everybody's just always yelling at you all day.
I can't talk mean to Siri, and it's because I don't use Twitter anymore. But when I did, the only like verified celebrity person to follow me was the original voice of Siri. So I was like, oh, that's such and such. I can't be mean to her. Like, come on.
That's a person. Oh, I love it. Personalizing the AI like that. That's how we got to do. That's so good. I love it. Listen, I know we're coming up on an hour and we want to be respectful of your time. So I do want to make sure we give you some time here to promote whatever you might want to. Tell the folks watching or anyone who might see this in the non-live sphere, where should they be looking for you and what kind of things do you want them to be kind of aware of for what you're working on?
Yeah, if anyone is curious and wants to connect with me, wants to hear more thoughts, you can go ahead and follow me on LinkedIn or just connect with me, send me a message. I live on it. I'm always happy to chat with people. If you are above the age of 19 and you live in Alberta, go to your local retailer, ask them to bring in Critical Hit Tilt-Proof Indica. It is a rotating strain. We keep it exciting. You're not buying the same thing time and time again every couple months. It is a new strain in the bag that I choose personally myself. I make sure it is perfect for the vibes that you are going for. Really great quality weed. Like we have, this is the Zombie Kush. This was our first release. This is actually one of the first batch here. 30.5% THC, so nice and strong. 3.6% terpenes, so very flavorful. And we have, the Gorilla Skittles coming out next month, hopefully.
You're gonna have to come back on for another episode and explain terpenes and all of those things. And we have another friend you have to talk to that's got some good knowledge on that. I can't wait for us to have. There's just so much education here that we could be getting from you. But please continue.
Bud Bash, if you are in Ontario or across Canada and you want to travel to Ontario, keep a look on our socials because we do events very regularly and we'd love for you to attend. And if you liked listening to me ramble about marketing and the cannabis space and maybe you have your own cannabis brand, reach out to me. I work with the amazing people at Grnhouse. It is one of the best teams I have ever had the pleasure of working with. We can get you right with in-field representation, digital marketing, whatever it is you're looking for. I will be the guy to do it for you.
Awesome.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yes, go links are in the description, folks. Go find his link on LinkedIn. Go hook up with William. He's got some good stuff rolling. I love it. I'm so glad that you joined us. We do have to have you come back because I know you've got a wealth of knowledge that we have yet to mine. I know Alecia has, I just know she's going to have 10 more questions she's going to write up when we're done here. Like, I need to ask you more about that and more about that. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah,
thank you, William. Always happy to be here on Franki's open mic. Thank you for having me. Always interested in coming back. So I'm sure we'll chat off camera.
Oh yes, we absolutely will. I'm so excited. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the comments. Thanks so much. And stay tuned for more because we're certainly going to have William back. And Alecia, thanks for coming in here and doing the co-hosting duties for me today. Of course.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me join. And thank you, William, for all this informative information about cannabis. I'm looking forward to speaking with you again and sharing more knowledge.
It was my pleasure. Always a pleasure talking with you too. Happy to be here.
Yes,
most excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. Do check out Will and the links in the description and support your local cannabis folks and cannabis community. Like, again, the grassroots is where it's at, people. If we band together, that's how we do it. We're building it and they are already ready to come and be here with us. Right, folks?
That's right.
I love it. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.